I'm going to share with you some tips on how you can finish Inktober. These are all from my own experience. I have finished 2 Inktober's prior to this year, in 2018 and 2019, and both of those times I did have some bad days, but throughout each month I had a steady motivation that carried me to the end. And I have written down what I felt contributed to me being able to finish both times. I'm going to start with what I feel is the most important tip, because as artists we are often our own worst enemy. Stop telling yourself negative stories about not finishing or not having finished before. If you want to finish the challenge, start with a positive mindset of I will finish Inktober this year. Stop telling everyone and yourself, oh, I probably won't finish, or that, oh, I have never finished it before, as both thoughts have a negative connotation to them. Plus, it doesn't matter if you never finished before. That was back then, and now is now. Keep this positive mindset with you also in other aspects. If one day you do not like the painting you created, instead of being angry and not wanting to continue the challenge, try to come up with things that you learned from making that artwork. Keep your mindset positive. In the words of Buddha, what we think, we become. The rest of the tips are a bit less philosophical. The first one is have your art supplies visible and, if possible, have a designated spot for painting. This way you will see your art supplies more often and remind yourself you are doing this challenge. Do bulk sketching in advance. Take 1 or 2 days or weeks to pump out as many sketches as you can. This will really help you along the way if you feel like your motivation is dropping or you are just having a bad day, as you have already done the most difficult part, which is coming up with the ideas. Concept thinking and sketching is what eats up most of the time for me, so I have started to really invest in doing that before the actual challenge starts. Mark 1 to 2 hours each day in your calendar for the challenge. It's easier to form a habit if you commit to it and write it down. It's also important to know at what time you are the most creative. If you don't know, you will probably know during the month. For me, I am the most creative early in the mornings, so my Inktober time is between 5 a.m. and 9 a.m. Obviously, you may be a night owl, making your time between 9 p.m. and midnight. This completely depends on the individual, but whatever time that is, mark it in your calendar, or you can even print out the calendar and stick it to your wall for the month. Tell everyone in real life and social media you're doing the challenge, and also post your artworks there. You can also post your process as well. This can help you feel accountable to others and motivate you to finish the challenge. It's also a great thing to surround yourself with other artists who are doing the challenge. Finally, choose a prompt list that inspires you, and don't, for heaven's sake, limit yourself to that prompt list if you're struggling. If a prompt doesn't inspire you at all, get creative with it. Good thing about art is that you can explain yourself out of anything. Say your prompt is train and it does not inspire you at all. Instead, you can just draw a scene of somewhere where you caught a train and explain that in your caption. If you can't find a prompt list you like, make your own, like I did for 2 years. Fill it with only the types of prompts that you know you will want to draw. I think this kind of rule bending is totally fine. The month is not called Promptober. It's Inktober or Arttober, and the point of it is to have a constant art practice, not to follow every rule to the letter. I hope that you found those tips useful. And for the rest of the video, I'm just going to chat a bit about the paintings in the video. The first painting was the betta fish, and I was quite happy with that one. I really got to know the medium of ink quite well with that one, as it was sort of flowing in the water, and it was just a really lovely experience to create that painting. I was also quite happy with how it was received in Instagram, and I think that later on I'm going to make it into a print and hopefully make a few different colored versions as well. The prompt you see here was a sword, and this was a very interesting one. I have never ever done anything like this before, and if it wasn't for this prompt I probably wouldn't have, to be honest. It was just one of those prompts where I really struggled to kind of include an animal in it, but I then just got this image in my head about a mouse king, which was so random, but I just decided to go for that. And one thing why I love doing Inktober so much is that every time you just end up doing something that you never thought that you would. So the mouse and sword definitely goes into that category. The prompt for day 6 was wood, but I was not very inspired by that one at all, so I just added the word land and that made it much more interesting for me, as I really want to get more into sort of woodland type of art, which I really like the colors of and the subjects matters of. So this was my first time doing a freth, sorry, I don't know how to say it, but with the plants around the animal like this. And I started to be a lot more comfortable with the inks when I did this one. So this was the 6th day, so I had already had a bit of practice with them, and here I felt like I had a bit better sort of control over the inks, and I knew like how fast I need to act with them before they dry and everything. This was also the first time that I didn't really want to go full out with the ink pens on top. I even thought that I might not do any of it, but I had already done the sketch with the ink pens, so I kind of had to go for it still. But I have a few of these types of drawings coming up later in the month, and I'm thinking I might try one of them so that I do not draw with ink pens first, just to see what kind of style that ends up being.
Capture me as I run. Hungry, 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 hungry. Boy, where do we start? Hungry, 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 hungry. Do you feel me? This girl's not moved easily. Paint my portrait or write me a poem. For you, for you, for you. All the things I wanna do for you. Hungry, hungry, hungry. Hungry, 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 hungry. Boy, where do we start? Hungry, 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 hungry. Do you feel me? Heart to heart, skin to skin. Oh, it's how love gets in. Heart to heart, skin to skin. Oh, it's how love gets in. Hungry, hungry, hungry. Boy, where do we start?
The prompt for day 7 was bugs, but I just have the one. For this one, I gave myself a couple of rules because it did take me quite a while to do the other ones. So I put a time limit for myself of 2 times 30 minutes. So I had an alarm clock after 30 minutes, then I took a break, and then I came back to the painting and had to finish after that. Another rule that I made for myself was to not use the ink pens because, as I mentioned in one of my vlogs, I feel like I use them too much. I really depend on them for my art, and I think it's okay, like it's the style that I now have, which is fine, but I also like to challenge myself and not get too stuck into one thing and kind of just try new things. And I haven't done like a painterly painting for a while. It's been a lot of like illustrations. So with this one I wanted to kind of try to get back to that painterly mindset, and I feel like I really enjoyed that because I had to work a bit harder with everything to make it look right without having to without then putting the ink pens on top to kind of guide the viewer of what's happening. So I did cheat just a little bit in the end because I had to do the antennas for this little fella, but other than that, I didn't use ink pens. There is of course many ways that I could improve this painting. It has a very loose feel to it, but that is kind of what I went for. And for me it's always really important to kind of remember that not every painting has to be like perfect. Like I don't need to try to reach for that perfection with everything that I create. And I feel like doing these types of paintings every now and then is really important for me to kind of understand that. Just enjoy the process, and you can learn new things, and then you can always go back to that other style, and that not everything has to be taken so seriously. Let's support each other throughout this month. Leave a comment below letting everyone know what are some of the tricks you use to consistently create art, whether it is during Inktober or otherwise.